well. It's moved by Councillor Walker, seconded by Councillor Watson. Considering the debate that we've had there, I just wondered if Councillor Sayers, and I know I'm reflecting on you as a councillor reflecting the region, not just Rodney. Councillor Sayers, do you have an interest in being added to that reference group?
I do, Mr. Chair. Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. And Councillor Hills?
I would like to, yes. Please.
And Councillor Hills, are there any other councillors that would like to be part of that reference group?
Everyone should put their hand up.
There being none. John, would you briefly introduce the item?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. Again, we have just the 2 slides for those, just giving the wider committee a bit of context. So the Northern Corridor Improvements Project, again, it's a key NZTA, New Zealand Transport Agency project. It is referenced in the Auckland Plan going back to March 2012 as a priority transport initiative. It's not one of the big 3. East-West Link is one of the big 3 in the Auckland Plan, but this certainly has a strong reference. July this year, the former Auckland Development Committee did endorse this project going to a board of inquiry managed by the EPA. And so we're now at the point of NZTA looking to lodge in December at the same time roughly as the East-West Link, which will put it on track for potential notification early in the new year. And so this is the alignment of the project, running north-south. The blue line is State Highway 1. The Northern Corridor Improvements project starts at State Highway 18 off to the west towards the Greenhithe area. Various improvements for both buses, general vehicles and cycling and walking improvements. It's quite a significant piece of infrastructure as well, with various new flyovers and bridges and so on, and does involve improvements right the way up through to Albany in the way of busway enhancements, improvements to the north. So that's essentially the project. It has been discussed with the community through rounds of consultation to date, but again, we're waiting to see the details in the application due to be lodged next month.
Thank you, John. Questions at this point, members? Okay, it's moved and seconded.
Question.
Sorry,
it's a very simple question. Noting everybody's, I suppose, interest in the previous agenda item and this one, why the difference?
It's just the same.
That's a question for all of us to answer silently, I think, isn't it?
I think so.
Yes.
Rhetorical
Thank you.
question.
Are there further questions on this item, Councillor?
Not a question, just a comment.
Going to the debate on this then, speaking first, Councillor Walker.
This project has been many years in the making. It's essentially some widening and realignment to existing roads. It's relatively contained. It has huge benefits in terms of public transport, walking and cycling, has phenomenal buy-in, I'd suggest, from the larger community, and will help to resolve a very critical bottleneck on the North Shore. Yep. I'd suggest most of the project is relatively straightforward and it's very well advanced.
Thank you, Councillor Walker. Councillor Watson.
And just briefly, just to add to that, certainly the very important project for the whole of the North Harbour region, but there are a number of effects, potential effects that really make the council's role as a submitter a very important one. There are a number of council assets from both Auckland Transport and Water Care that are affected. There's a whole of the North Harbour hockey centre up at Rosedale Park, which serves a phenomenal number of people that will have to be relocated, along with BMX and a pony club. The landfill is affected. There's a kind of land contamination issue potentially there, and the wastewater treatment plant. And the other one that certainly Councillor Walker's been taking quite an interest in is the number of properties, 160 properties, a large number of which are businesses. So incredibly important project, certainly needed sooner rather than later, but a series of potential issues to be negotiated, and I think the Planning Committee's delegation to this working party is an important one in that respect. But other than that, it's certainly one that's a lot more self-contained and geographically identifiable than the earlier one, I think.
Thank you, Councillor Watson. I'll speak to this very briefly. I have to commend NZTA for their willingness to listen to mine and others who submitted when there was risk of there not being a busway extension as part of this project, and Councillor Walker and Watson contributed to that too. I think we've arrived at a very good outcome, because this project will extend the busway to Albany in a formal way. It also provides a new busway station at Greville Road, very important, so the people to the east can link in, and the commercial area, they can also link in at that point. There are disconnects on the southern road, which is Paul Matthews from memory, or the Upper Harbour Highway as it's maybe called, Paul Matthews Road, I think to be addressed through the submission. Councillor Watson's highlighted the dislocation of North Harbour Hockey to possibly Rosedale, which has knock-on effects to the Greenhithe Pony Club, riding for the disabled, and I'm hearing that the budget is very limited. So I think we need to keenly examine what the NZTA budget is, otherwise our ratepayers are going to wear it down the track. I'm of the understanding that's maybe in the vicinity of $2 million. That looks like a pretty scant amount to satisfy the recreational needs into the future. I'm also concerned about the lack, though has potential for west to North Shore south commuters. If you look at the plan, travelling from the west and connecting through to the south of the North Shore, and I'm talking from Mairangi Bay all the way south, and including Birkenhead, etc., Takapuna, the connections are planned for the future, not as part of this to-be-built project. That is of concern to me, as are the elevated flyovers connecting west to north and north to west. Members, that is something that most first world cities are moving away from, and I think if we were designing the Waterview with its massive elevated flyovers that obliterate the visual relationship of the Waitakeris that you used to once see when you came up out of Waterview on the motorway, we'd be building that differently today.
But you can look out the window and see
I think there's opportunity to explore possibly the tunnelling rather than a flyover connection on this project. But that's my brief feedback, and I'm offering that now for us to examine in our submission as we go forward. So thanks, members. It's moved and seconded by the ward councillors. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Contrary, no. Declare that carried. We'll go to item 14 now, members. That's our submission.
Point of order, Mr Chairman.
And the community plan has been
Point of order,
distributed.
Mr Chairman. Just, can I
What's
ask
the
about bricks?
Yes, we had one, if you recall, not so long ago, and we'll have
5
one at
minutes.
12:30.
12:30, thank you.
We get to item 15.
And Megan Tyler on the submission to the Regulatory Systems Building and Housing Amendment Bill.
Good afternoon, Mr Chair, Mr Mayor, councillors. This, I think, is a reasonably short item, so I'll just speak to it. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer. This is a pretty operational bill, which is an omnibus bill, which in this particular case deals with some changes, literally about 4 cross-referencing changes to the Building Act, and some changes to the Unit Titles Act. In the sense that they're operational improvements, they are supported by staff, and so we suggest that you can support them. But we have taken the opportunity to request the Select Committee to consider making some changes to the staging of unit titles. At the moment, the relationship between the Unit Titles Act and the Resource Management Act is clumsy, and there's quite a big workaround required by Council and the Land Information New Zealand. So we're taking this opportunity to suggest some very easy changes to both the Unit Titles Act and the Resource Management Act to make that work smoothly, because a number of our developments, of course, in Auckland and some of the other growth areas in New Zealand, more and more unit titles are being staged. They're not all being built at the same time, they're being built over a number of stages. So that's the purpose of the submission, and it's attached to your agenda, and happy to take questions if there are any.
Questions at the stage, Councillor
I'll
Cooper?
move it, but I've also got a question.
It's moved. Do I have a second? Councillor Fletcher, thank you. It's moved and seconded. Question,
Thank
Councillor
you,
Cooper.
through you, Mr Chair. So, given at the moment the banks are actually pulling all their investment in apartments, and some apartments developments are basically falling over for lack of finance, do you think some of these changes might give the banks more confidence? Because we say we want people to be living in apartments, we want our young people to be able to buy them, but they've got very high LVR ratios, and the banks are just not lending on apartments. Would any of this help that?
I'm not sure whether it's an absolute that all the banks are not lending. I think they are. They've just put constraints.
Yeah, what I'm
on
talking, I'm very
but-
clear that not all of them are, Mr Chairman, but there's a real leeriness around it, and it doesn't help implement our unitary plan.
Through the chair, I'm not an expert in finance, but these changes aren't directed at all around the financing or the banking side of development. So it is very much around the role of body corporates, the assessment of interests and utilities. So my reading of it would be, I don't think it would have any impact, but I'm not an expert in that financial area. It's certainly not linked into financial work.
Yeah, I guess my question, Mr Chairman, is that the rules have been so clunky around these that doesn't make it a good investment for banks sometimes if there's a lot of uncertainty.
Sure.
So, yeah, thank you.
Other questions on this topic? Member Hinari?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Number 17 and 18. As a result of the time constraints and complexity of the election period, staff have not engaged with iwi, mana whenua, or the Independent Māori Statutory Board. But then in 18, the issue raised in the submission is operational in nature and affects Māori in the same way as any other group in Auckland. I'm just trying to figure out, how is 18 possible if nobody spoke to 17?
Megan, would you like to reply to that?
So I guess we were just saying we have not consulted with any people in particular around the submission. The staff have had a short time frame to given the submission time frame was lodged right on elections. So we were just being open about that. Our view is that because it's operational technical matters on the Unit Titles Act and around staging of unit titles, any person who's a developer or involved in unit titles would be affected in the same way. So there's no particular issues for Māori or Te Ao Māori as part of the submission or the changes to the Unit Titles Act.
But how do you know when you didn't consult anybody? I mean, it's not a big thing, but what I worry about is that you have a responsibility, like I raised at the beginning of the day, and that every paper has a Māori impact statement, basically. And my concern is that it's basically lip service, and you just two statements just don't go together, and you might as well come out and say, sorry, for lack of time, we couldn't consult everybody, and that's cool. But as long as people are upfront about it. But what worries me is that the statements just, I think they've just been put in the end. Hopefully no one reads the damn paper.
Okay, look, I'd like to pick this up with staff. This is an issue that's present at, it arose at the first council, and I'd like to pick this up with staff and resolve this so that we get the wording right, and we'll work that through with the IMSB so that we have something that reflects the actuals, and I think that's what the member is asking for.
Thank you, Chair.
So let me pick that up and work it through with the staff.
Thanks.
Any other questions or debate on this particular item? Members, I do have a question. Megan, so you're saying under paragraph 11 there's really not an opportunity here to explore the deficiencies within the Act as they relate to body corporate management, the lack of a body corporate register, and the transparency around body corporates, as the Honourable Nikki Kay was exploring. Is there absolutely no opportunity under this submission to submit on the body corporate concerns?